There are many things that we want to say, but I think a poem says it best. And I'd like to open with a poem by an Argentinian poet, that is Roberto Juarez. Every word is a doubt, every silence another doubt. However, the intertwining of both lets us breathe. All sleeping is a sinking down, all waking another sinking. However, the intertwining of both lets us rise up again. All life is a form of vanishing, all death another form. However, the intertwining of both lets us be a sign in the void. I was thinking Clara's poems are very much like that. It's very difficult to grasp at the essence of her poetry. And we are really privileged to have her here to speak about her volume, Mandalay, which interests us today because it's a trilingual edition written originally in Spanish, translated by the poet in English, and rendered in Hindi. Clara, we welcome you to the 10th edition of the Goa Literary Festival.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It has been a long way from the beginning of this book from Mandalay to be here. So it's a great honor to be doing this today.
Would you like to start with a poem, because we're already at 4:10?
Yes.
So
Detrás del sol, entre las galaxias más distantes, junto a la hoja del ceibo, tu nombre.
behind the sun, among the most distant galaxies, close to the ceibo tree leaf, your name. सूरज के उस पार, दूर किसी और ही दुनिया में, मनरो के फूलों के पास, तुम्हारा नाम. Thank you. Why? Thank you. Why the sun and why the leaf?
I think this poem that Brian pointed out from the whole book, in some ways represents some concepts, some ideas that come through the whole book in many other poems. There are some elements, although the poem is very small. No, it's like a haiku. It's very, very synthetic. It talks about it's doing a relation. No, it starts with the sun and the galaxies, and then comes directly, very quickly, to the ceibo tree leaf that is just by the side. No, by our side. There's a contrast, a big contrast, and I think the whole book, the whole poems, there are many poems that are showing these contrasts, no? Contrasts always appear very, very natural for me. I think that our life is made up of contrasts, of distance, closeness, presence, absence, communication, isolation, or darkness, light. The two sides of the same coin. So on some way the poem is showing that. On the other side there's also a symbol that you may also find in other poems, that is the ceibo tree leaf. The ceibo tree is the national tree of Argentina. So among many other trees, I picked that tree because it's a very symbolic one, no? So there are obviously poetry also usually have many readings. One of the readings that maybe is more personal in this poem is this presence of the ceibo leaf. No, I have been living out from Argentina for the last 20 years, no, maybe 15 years, 12 years. They seem like to be 20. Maybe 12 years. And through these 12 years, I have learned different ways, no, to live abroad, to live in another place that is not my original place, and to see my own roots from different perspectives. So this book is showing a particular state in which I was reflecting on this idea of this closeness and distance. When you're far away from your roots, or when you're far away from something that is important to your identity or to your life, without maybe in a conscious or not conscious way, you reflect about it, no? So these contrasts again are quite paradoxical, no? Because I learned, for example, that distance and closeness are too close to each other, no? And maybe I haven't been as close as I never have been before when I was in a geographical or physical distance. I have never been conscious of the closeness if it was not for the distance, no, for the physical distance. So in many ways, they come together.
Yes. In fact, it is said that you cannot write about a place by staying in it. Generally speaking, poetry is written from a third space.
Yeah.
It's written from far away. And my poems on Goa are also written mostly from Delhi because of that distance. It kind of, you know, it adds more value to the concept, to the place. And I think you miss it more when you're away, isn't it? But it's amazing that a leaf can actually, you know, root that entire yearning, that entire nostalgia with that image, and you relate so well to that. But having said that, and in defense of rootedness, you do see the 3 sections spread across the book. So was that form something which came to you when you were composing the poems? And is there a trajectory? Is there a start point and an end point? How would you differentiate these 3 sections? And in addition to that query, each of the sections is foregrounded by a particular poet. Why?
I think that every book is a trip, no? And this is also a particular trip. And in the trips you have stages, no? You have different stages. There are different moments. The trip always involves different stages, different perspectives, no? Along you keep on moving. So the book is divided in three main sections, and those 3 main sections also become one circle. Because whenever you get to the place that you think you wanted to go, in some ways you are also at the starting point, no? And because in some way that trip has almost always let you enrich that original point from which you started that trip. There is always a circle, no? There's always a coming back, even if we are not conscious of it, no? So the book has this concept of the mandala, of the circle also, no? In which everything goes back to that original place, and everything is connected, no? And everything is also a stage of another thing that is beyond that, no?
So it's very circular. I'm reminded of a line I think Manohar Shetty may remember, and correct me if I'm wrong. My backward place is where I belong. Isn't that Nissim Ezekiel? Is that from Poet Lover Birdwatcher? Absolutely. I was so happy to have you here with us, Manohar. And what did it take for you to, think about writing your poetry? Did you think that it's a little esoteric, it's a little, not as easily accessible as Neruda, and even Borges is accessible in some ways, like the street that I know in Argentina, but your poems don't give that relief to the reader. So why are you telling them to go and buy it?
Okay. I have done a personal, if we keep on talking about trips, I have done a personal trip in my whole process of writing. And I think I can't avoid being very synthetic and going straight to the point, if I can do that, no? Whenever I see that there's a point, there's the essence of something, then I go to it. So in many ways, these poems, I think that as are synthetic, short poems that go straight to the point, go very well with the contemporary reader, no? That in some way is distracted by many things going on, no? There are many inputs in our world coming to us, and it's not easy for the reader today to get involved into a kind of thinking that is engaged, no? And that needs quite a lot of time and energy on it. I just don't write in this way because we'll sell more or because it's easier. I think I go straight to the point because it's the way I see things, no? And I think it's why saying in many words what you can say in 10 words or you can say in 15 words.
So let's give them another poem.
Let's go, yeah.
It's with you. These 3 poems which we have selected are from the first section, the second section, and the third section. So the one about the Cebu tree leaf is from the first section. And maybe we can also announce the page number.
This is page 69.
Page 69.
Porque cada vez es siempre la primera vez. Porque es siempre toparme con tus ojos, con tus saludes quietos, con tus muros. Y no es a través del tiempo ni en las hojas muertas de todos los árboles nuestros. Es solo la amabilidad de ser ante vos una siempre perfecta extraña.
Because every time is always the first time. Because it always comes across your eyes upon your quiet avalanches upon your walls. And it's not just through time or in the dead leaves of every tree of ours. It's just the kindness of being before you, always a perfect stranger. क्योंकि हर बार जैसे पहली बार होता है, क्योंकि हमेशा देखती हूँ तुम्हारी आंखें, तुम्हारा खामोश तूफान, तुम्हारी दीवारें, और यह सिर्फ गुजरता वक्त या हमारे पेड़ों की झड़ती हुई पत्तियां नहीं है, यह तो सिर्फ एक खूबसूरत एहसास है, तुमसे रूबरू होने का हमेशा एक अनजान की तरह. Thank you.
So again, no, this contrast of presence and absence, no? How presence can be disguised in a complete absence, no? And how our even also our social life, the way that we relate with other people, can be tricky, no? How isolation, no, can be disguised with lots of people around, with a communication or a connection that is not so, no?
Tell me something about the genesis of this book. How did this book happen? I think this was a collection that was written in Spanish first, and then you thought of a trilingual edition. That was a big jump, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you had Spain at your feet, but then you said, okay, let's do it in Hindi, let's do it in English as well.
Yeah.
Why?
The books were done in most of the poems were written in Spain, in Seville, but some years later, like 5 years later, we started coming to Goa. No, I started coming to Goa because of job issues. We started coming, and I started to have sometimes, maybe 2-3 months a year we would stay here in Goa. So some of the poems are written here also. At that point, I didn't have an idea that Goa would be my future homeland. But soon after that happened. So when I was living here, when I started having contact with friends, with other writers, with other readers, then I said to myself, we have to share it. Whatever we do, we have to share it, no? So I started translating the poems to English. And then throughout all these translation, no, that in which I want to thank Manohar Shetty, that he gave me a great hand to polish out all these poems. So his hand is also present here in this translation. Then we had this opportunity. Then when I had most of them translated, then I say, okay, now we have to go to the next step, no? And then I was very lucky, because then appeared this grant from the Argentinian government. The book is published under a grant that is called Program Sur, South Program, and in which the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they give a prize that is a full grant to translate and publish these books, in the case of Mandalay, to publish it here in Goa. So fortunately, all that found a place, and now we have the book here.
And I think we had a nail-biting finish for this book launch, because the books really came in just before the session started. So hurrah for things that happened at the right time. This name, well, there is Mandala and there is Mandalay. Would you like to say something?
Okay, there's a small introduction at the beginning of the book, in which I wanted to explain the concept of Mandalay. What is this book about? The name appeared because I wanted to join the presence of India and the presence of Latin America. I wanted both to be together in some way. So the mandala, although it's a very universal concept, because all the Asian civilizations had mandalas, no? That were a very essential part of their own culture. We can find it throughout all the continents. But apart from that, the mandala has a very important place in India, no? In the Indian culture, which I have not seen in any other culture. The mandala for India has a place and an importance that it hasn't in any other contemporary society. So there's a concept of the mandala, and the AI of the end is a suffix that I took from the Quechua language, that is an original language from Latin America, from South America, from the Quechua. So in some way, I am giving birth to this concept that joins both places, no? Goa and South America. The mandala that I took is an Inca mandala that may be very similar to many Indians mandala also, but it's an Inca one.
I'm thinking of a line which I came across on my journey as a poet. Jahan na paunche Ravi, wahan to paunche Kavi. So where the poet doesn't, sorry, what is it? Yes, where the sun, thank you, Astrid, where the sun doesn't reach, the poet reaches. And this is so true in the case of Clara. She has been all over, and at the same time has this amazing ability to, let's say, crystallize the experience and bring it down to the simplicity of a leaf or a root. We have actually 3 minutes and 3 things to do. Yes? 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, so 5 minutes and 3 things to do. So one is we have one last poem. Second is that we have to ask you questions, and the third thing I'm still thinking about. So we'll start with the last poem.
Dime y bendice mi cuerpo. Dile a tu lengua que perfore mis pupilas. Acércate, que he borrado tu nombre de todo lo creado, para escribirlo esta vez sin letras.
Tell me and bless my body. Tell your tongue to perforate my eyes. Come closer as I have erased your name from all that was created to write it this time without words. कहो और आज़ाद कर दो मुझे, कह दो अपने शब्दों को कि बीन दे मेरी नज़रों को, करीब आओ कि मिठा दिया है तुम्हारा नाम हर चीज़ से जो बनाई गई थी, ताकि लिख सकूं उसे इस बार शब्दों के बिना. I remember the third thing. We have to release this.
Yes.
So,
Let's do it.
thank you. Questions, please.
Would anybody like to ask any questions?
Do you have a favorite poem in the entire book? I know sometimes it's difficult to have just one favorite, but if you do, can you read it out to us and explain why it's your favorite?
Well, it's difficult that. There are maybe I like those poems that were written here in Panjim because they remind me to an exact moment, no, an exact space that fortunately is the same space in which I am now. So there are many poems that talk about Panjim. I'll just read out one, okay? I read it in English, not to make it, we have not that time. The night in August, Panjim, and the paths of other suns spinning. Between the daytime sheets, the flake of the only light of your resting body. A body or a poem that descends, naked until it scrapes with its tongue the low vowel, until it weaves the sound of the waves on the lips. This poem also shows this idea of writing, this idea of a body or a poem that descends. I use a lot of this image of descending, writing as the action of descending, going down. Because whatever, I think that the most honest, sincere, and worth writing is the one that is a result of this going inside, no, going inwards. So there are many poems that talk about descending. So this also talks about this image, no, of the poem itself as the image of writing that descends, that go down.
So which other poets that were basically influenced you, the poets who you have been dependent upon or who have been your icons? Do you have any poets like that from Argentina?
Yes, there are many poems. There are many poets. There is, for example, the one he was, Roberto Juarros is an Argentinian that I have read a lot. There are some poets that I even name in the book. The 3 sections start with a short verse or phrase from that poems that Roberto Bolaño. Sometimes I have the influence not only of poets but also prose writers. I also write prose apart from poetry. I am working on a novel right now, so I have influences of both sides. There's another, there are 2 poems that talk about, especially about a novel, that is Cortázar. Julio Cortázar is a very well-known writer from Argentina. It is, apart from Borges, yes, apart from Borges, Cortázar is the other one. There's a very famous novel that is called Hopscotch, And there are two poems that they talk about a bridge and that going on a cedar plank and traversing from one building to the other through a cedar plank. And those poems are referring, for example, to this writer, to Julio Cortázar, because it's a scene from that novel. So yes, there are many. I also have many influences of poets from Spain. I have been living 8-9 years in Spain. I did most of the studies in creative writing that I did were in Spain. So I have also a big influence from poets and writers from Spain.
Can I add just one more to this? Since you deal with also fiction stories, so fiction requires a certain elaboration, but your poetry, like you said, it's straight to the arrow. I mean, it's like an arrow. So how do you juxtapose the two in your?
Yeah, that is actually a challenge for me right now. Yes, because I have been writing the prose in a way that was a little bit far from the way I was writing poetry. But then I understood that concept can be also achieved with the prose. There is some kind of prose that also goes straight to the point, no? There are some writers that do this wonderfully. For example, about John Fante. He's from an Italian origin from the United States. For example, he's one of my favorites. There are many authors that have this concept or this perspective in writing. So I have that tendency also. Also, I think that the writing of short stories, what I have done most, make it much easier. Because the short story also has an essence and is a circle itself. A short story has to be a circle. The circle has to be very clear. Yeah.
I'm afraid we have to cut it short. I'd just like to say what an interesting amalgamation of literature and cultures. You are an Argentinian lady writing in Spanish and English and Hindi. And all the very best with your book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. We do hope you'll pick up a copy to make this an evening to remember. Thank you, Clara.
Thank you, Brian.